So, are you all interested in
Yes.
the topic of?
What?
Okay, so.
I got an email
You did.
about NeoCities.
Oh, did someone sign up for NeoCities?
Someone just signed up for NeoCities.
Sweet.
So I am
NeoCities?
Oh, sorry. I'm supposed to designate at least one note taker. Does anybody have a great eagerness to note take?
I can
I can't believe how
note take.
cute the
Wait a
logo
minute.
I started us out a little bit. with
You
some things.
sure did. You're a monster. We haven't met yet.
Anybody want to be a timekeeper? Because I'm definitely
Oh, I would love to be the timekeeper.
fantastic.
Yeah, not you.
10, 5 of them.
Yeah, so I'm Matt Griffin. I'm interested in this topic for various reasons, not the least of which is I keep going to conferences and going to concerts and recording things and feeling like there's a value to both a full recording as an archive for future use and evaluation and the pulling out of curatorially of specific things to share. And having worked in film for a very long time, I've been eager to find what ways time-based media use and text and web can come together. And there are various projects, but I wrote up some things as a place to start. Some areas in which time markers are used I think might be pertinent to think about. Maybe. So video editors will often use markers of various kinds, and you can have a whole stack of them, each, having, a type or a kind, such as a chapter marker versus shot versus, comments. There are also, in video media, like delivery, there's subtitle formats, and a lot of the formats that are used to drive and deliver subtitles are very different than editor time markers. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It just, they kind of evolved into these standards over time, separately, and now they seem to be converging a little bit. There are music editors that you'll have various ways of tracking time, and so there are various ways to track annotations to what's happening, either like on the MIDI side with like note sequences, or like on the audio time-based side for audio file. And there are some interesting hybrid text marker strategies. Like, have any of you folks seen the O'Reilly Oreo pieces? They're so check out this crazy regex one.
Oh yeah.
As you move down the page, the action of scrolling down will trigger various media actions. So you can, like, a video will start, and as you scroll down, the video will kind of follow along with you, and it'll track where in the transcript you are, and then maybe it might even show, bring you into like a command line to show active things happening. I thought that was really cool, and it's driven on both sides by time markers in the media and time markers in the text, and I'm really curious how that works. So I thought those were interesting points of reference outside of this field, and I thought it might be interesting to talk about text-based time markers, plain text note formats for the annotations themselves that maybe could be queued, and I'm going to shut up. Anyway, I wrote some things, so I was excited about this. What kind of interest do you all have coming into this with time-based media and web delivery and annotation and such things?
So are you looking for something like this? Look at the videonot.es.
Well, I've never heard of this. I bet it's great.
Video.
not.es.
Okay.
Oops.
Yeah,
I put it in the wrong.
Okay. Have you used this before?
I've seen it. I've watched the demo, but I've never used it.
Oh, cool.
It hasn't been updated in a long time, but it allows you to take notes and tag them into a time index. All the notes are stored in your own Google Drive, which is kind of nice.
I worked with somebody who built an iOS app like this. They call it PairNote, but it was very similar. It shows the video, and I think you could even take the video, and while you're taking the video, type the notes, and then rewatch with the
Oh,
all very
cool.
close.
When you suggested the topic, I thought about this.
This looks.
This is fascinating.
So yeah, what kind of my curiosity was what kind of interface do you imagine using? The thing that occurs to me is the SoundCloud style play button, visual description of the audio file,
Kind of a waveform
and
thing.
of the kind of the waveform, yeah, and they have the little markers for so and so left a comment, and as it plays, it pops the comment, and that was the first place I'd ever seen anything like that, I think, with them. But obviously, silo, and I don't know what they let you pull out. With
Right.
that.
So it seems to me that it would be exciting to be able to do things in plain text that don't require other tools to archive things, because there are various places you can archive media forever and text. It'd be a shame to have to rely on a service.
The one thing I've done in this space is adding captions to videos, closed captions for YouTube and
Yeah.
anything else. And the thing that I find fascinating is that there is a standardized format for it, and it is plain text.
But which the dot sub
like
or
.stt
yeah.
or VTT.
Yeah,
but-
WebVTT is the format that works in the most places, or SRT.
SRT,
is
yeah.
the more common for embedding.
But it's kind of cool because the format is just text. Like, you can open it in a text editor, and it's basically like the timestamp, start and end, and then followed by text.
Yeah.
And then like a new extra break between
Yep.
subtitles. And it's great because like you can use any tool to generate it,
Mhm.
and then you just input a text file, and then you can use various tools to consume it. So like you can upload it to YouTube, and YouTube will put it in the video as captions. Like you could have a browser plugin that does it, so you can do it without YouTube. But yeah, I like that it is just text.
Have you ever played around with using that for annotation instead of subtitles?
No, I've only
Or closed
touched with it.
Yeah. That's yeah. I've messed with SRT in other forms, where it's a delivery format that you then process through to bake in subtitles for like, but that was like an older. Could you do other things like? Could you specify placement or anything else in those?
I only know of the just time offset thing. I don't know if there's like an extension that does visual placement of the text. Did we
You know
lose
how to get this
the
back
hangout?
on? Yeah. I don't even actually know where the computer is that it's on.
That is the computer.
Okay. Sorry.
Marty, question for you.
Sure.
You post podcasts
Yeah.
to your thing. Do you do anything?
I do a few different
With
things.
that
So I'll drop these in the chat, but let's see. Tag excerpt. So I do a podcast that's very informational, and to keep it like incredibly short and clean, I actually write a full script, which I read verbatim. So I have a transcript that matches exactly what is in the audio, and I use that for a few things. So one, I use it for kind of an advertising bit. What Wi-Fi am I on? Why is this not working? On the Wi-Fi across the hall. I'll drop an example in the chat once I'm back on Wi-Fi. But I actually make these little videos using a tool called Audiogram, and I use a fork of it that's made by the BBC for use with their own podcasts. It was originally made by WNYC Studios in New York, and what they wanted to be able to do was like share excerpts from their longer form radio shows and podcasts in a way that would be supported on platforms like Twitter and Facebook, where they don't support audio as a first-class citizen. So you can post videos there, and essentially what their tool does, and I can show an example here, is it lets you take like a static image and an audio file, and in text, and it'll add subtitles to it. And so these are actually like pixels baked into the video file, but it also generates those. I'll silence it. It also generates those like SRT files, so like you could embed it directly into the video. And I've used those because they're good for short teasers. I did one episode of my like 10-minute podcast where I actually used the same tool to edit out the whole 10 minutes, and the editing portion of it like really breaks down. It's just not designed for that much. I'm sure there are tools that are better. And in general, I find that like the data that's being manipulated is very simple, and I could probably write my own tools that do a much better job. And eventually I will. It's just like I'm not totally sure like who's making use of this stuff. The reason I bring up the other tooling is that I also do for one of my episodes. So I figured out, like Aaron was saying, there is a standard for describing subtitles, and there's a version of it that is a W3C standard. So like it works in web browsers. And you can add it to a video tag. So if you have a video, you can say my subtitle file is over here, and it's in this web VTT format, which is just like timestamps, lines of text, over and over again. And what I found out as a hack is you can put a video tag on a page and give it a background, so give it a poster image so that it shows where a video should go.
But the
and then you give it the source
file is
you say the source for this video is this MP3, and then the subtitle file is over here. And so when I play this, let's see, there's some delay at the top because it's music. Oh wait, I also have to turn it on. Most captioning is off by default, which is really frustrating.
So that there is a plain video tag with the controls showing?
Yeah, this is a video tag, and then embedded in it is audio. Oh, and it's not working for some reason. Good demo.
It's working on mine.
Is it?
Here,
Okay.
I can flip this around.
And so that's,
Don't let the demonstration see it, or it'll stop working.
so that's a that's native. So like those subtitles are not baked into the video. That's rendered
Cool.
by the browser. And
nice.
and you can see
That's what I
my
want.
default thing below that, which is like I include the transcripts on my post just as this like big honkin' ugly text embed.
That's the thing that the tag is and the browser is using to.
It's not using that data directly. It's just a way of like I try to make the text of the I try to, for an accessibility thing, like try to make the full text of this thing that I've posted in audio only form available to read.
Yes.
But what I would love to do is have more of a live transcript. So like you hit play and this thing appears and it starts like highlighting
That's
the
the-
things that are being read.
What's that site that does all the text presentations? Is it InfoQ? I feel like that will play the video of the presentation and the actual slideshow. SlideShare might do it also. Puts them side by side, and
There are a handful. The demo that Matt talked about, like O'Reilly has some of these. There's a good example of a company that's trying to do this right now. They're at Greta.com. And
Greta?
Yeah, Gretta. And they've partnered with some podcasts, and essentially what they're doing is they're offering the service of like the hard work of transcribing the audio, like getting a clean transcript that's like written in plain language with proper punctuation, and associating each like utterance with the person that said it. And here's an example there. So this is from the Curiosity podcast, and as it plays, you can see it like highlights as these people are like taking turns. And you can
That's cool.
You can take any of these little chunks, and they have a link for share as video clip.
Oh,
And
awesome.
so then what they'll do in the background is like similar to the audiogram. They'll take the audio, they'll render it out with some captions baked in to show that actual text. And then that becomes something that you can share on Twitter, and it links back to the original post. So it makes it easy for people to like find little snippets that they like and use that to like bring attention to larger pieces of media.
So a tool in kind of a world that I think is really relevant here is that of video coding. And so this is mostly a behavioral science thing where you have videos and you go through and you
Yeah.
analyze them very carefully. And there are a lot of really awesome tools. We're a big fan of Boris, B-O-R-I-S, it's open source, and so you can then watch a video and really, really carefully annotate.
Video coding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So B-O-R-I-S, and through that you could then very carefully label out who's talking or who's in the scene or whatever is happening. You can make up your own variables, annotate the video, and then they have a lot of different ways to export it. So then you could build that into whatever system that you're talking about, rather than just like doing it just by creating your own format for that. So there's a lot that exists in how to get stuff in that format.
And I remember hearing about a really intense project in Germany. This archivist was taking all the video of politicians speaking and was locking all these time-based markers for their physical cues and behaviors, and turned that, and over time was able to get enough of a record to begin to extrapolate those behaviors.
Yeah. You could totally do that in these kinds of tools.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so again, you can create your own variables of whatever they are, if it's like certain body positions or interactions. You know, this is what they'll use if they're watching like animal behavior and they want to see like when you're in this section, they have some stuff where you can like measure distances in there. And Boris is again open source and free. If you're willing to spend money, then there's even more fancy tools that are out there.
So you essentially are marking up like a transcript. Is there a way, can you go the other direction, like the tool that like Marty showed us, the Retta, and say search for something and use that to find the media that's referenced?
If the player supports it, right? So like Boris, yes. If you have another Boris file,
okay. So it's a player as well
right,
as
right.
Okay.
But the thing that they support is lots of different ways to output that data once you've had it, and so then I could imagine opportunities to build that into other web players, or perhaps there are communities that have done that, and I just don't know, with things beyond just transcripts.
Has anybody here used Trent? Trent.com. So their recent project, it's a commercial project, kind of tech startup. But what it does a automated transcription, like voice to text pass. But then it gives you access to, and then it manifests a transcript in which, as you're going through it, it's highlighting where in the audio you are. And so there's a whole transcription tool set in there. And so what you basically get is a really fast, really cheap audio to text transcription that you can then improve. And while everybody is doing this and improving it,
T-R-I-N-T.
T-R-I-N-T.
Yes,
They are
not the Buick dealership.
right. They are improving their models and making better audio to text transcriptions as you go. But you can go in there and you can edit right as you're listening and edit things down and use those results. But anywhere you want, you can reference the time of where you are in the original clip. You can play it back.
But you have to upload your video to them.
You do. It's in that silo. It's not. That's not what I want, though. It is cheap and fast. I would love to see something like that. That is just a standard for how to associate clips to text, and I can just do that work myself. Okay. Are people sharing? Well, wait a minute. Okay, we're at IndieWebCamp. Various people here are. All these sessions being recorded. Notes are being taken live. So, is anybody doing? Anybody other than Marty? Marty's doing one very specific and wonderful thing, based on a process he's put together for the updates. But what are people doing anything with the audio and video recordings of these conference elements to maybe pull out highlights and or reference particular time markers, like somewhere that these are permanently published to the world?
They're on the schedule grid, or on the demo page for demos tomorrow, and I guess intros. We've often done within the transcript that's being written, hyperlink to time offsets in the video, so that as you're reading through, you can be like, oh, there's that person's demo, click, and then it jumps over to YouTube with the time offset in the URL, so the player starts at the right spot. I think that's about the extent of like our connection between the text and the video.
Right.
But it's very useful.
Yeah, I support that on my site as
That's
well.
great.
And a couple of times people have shared out like episodes of my podcast with those timestamp URLs. And for some browsers, it even works to bracket. So you can like start at 105 seconds, end at 125 seconds. So it's like it will just play that clip. I don't show anything clever. Like theoretically, my page could also, if I had a transcript, like zip you right to that part of the transcript and show a really nice excerpt. That's something I had really never thought of until I said it out loud right now. That could be pretty awesome.
Hack Day project.
Yeah.
Well, what tools are used to indicate? Is it?
So there's a standard called media fragment, I believe is what it's called.
Oh.
So like there's URL fragments, which is
Yeah.
the hash blah 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 in the URL, and then it'll jump to the HTML element with that ID. So media fragment is the time offset version of that for media files. So there's like a syntax for it. It's like T number of seconds, and then you can do T number of seconds, comma, other second offset, and that's the from to. There's a couple different versions of that, but basically
Is it linked to the specific playback tool, or is it a standard that's
it's
used
a
for
standard
multiple?
implemented in the browser.
Oh.
So if you have a video with like in a video tag on the page, if you make the source URL to that video including the hash media fragment, then the player will just start in the right spot. The browser does it.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's super great.
Sounds like most of what I'm looking for. Maybe.
I wrote a little shim. I think Marty uses it
Yeah, I use
too,
yours.
which if you're on a web page with the video embedded, the little JavaScript shim takes that fragment and puts it in the video player so that you can share the HTML page with the time offset. All it does is just copies the video fragment from the URL of the page you're on into the video player so that the browser handles the rest of it.
Fantastic. And is this? Did you share about it in the wiki, or is it?
I
just
think there's a page
external
on
resource?
media fragment in the wiki, yeah.
Okay.
Let me,
It's a W3C
But yeah, it's W3C
recommendation
stack.
too.
Yeah.
yeah, there's a page media fragment on the wiki, and that has links to URLs of
Sweet.
Marty and mine with
Yeah.
examples.
And back to the web standards.
My little JavaScript snippets in there.
So what is it? Okay, so it's already in the C also. Right, that's the right way to mark it in these in Etherpad for this. Great. Thank you. And so it seems like Marty, you have a tool that is sort of working, and you're sort of making it brute force work for you.
Yeah. I
And
don't do
you
the
have
best
a-
thing because it's like the tooling is just not there. So
Yeah.
I do what is fast and easy.
What do you really crave when you get around to? What element of it do you wish was that you think is worth implementing when you get around to it?
It's a good question. Honestly, I don't have a particular roadmap for it because I don't know what would be best. Like there are a lot of things I think would be really neat, but I'm not sure, like, what would open this up to a new audience? Like, are there people out there that are interested in the content I make but are struggling to access it because of, like hearing issues or would share it, but there's not an easy way to just like share a tiny little snippet. I don't know. I think like those would be neat to build and find out, but I don't personally know of like who's done a survey of like what are the best practices. I would love to find out.
And Aaron, do you feel that the media fragments standard is sort of comprehensively solves?
We
with
have,
this?
like I said, like we do very limited things with actually linking up text and video right now in this, for our transcripts of the event, and it works well enough for that. But the big thing for me that I feel like is missing is it's hard to make a transcript of audio, like, in the first place. And a lot of this stuff relies on having a transcript in the first place. And like YouTube can do auto text to speech to text, and it's 60%, I would say.
Yeah.
Not super great.
Depending on the speaker and
Depending on
like,
the
a
speaker
lot
and the
of
quality
things.
and all that, but I've been recording some meetup events in Portland, and they actually hire a live captioner steganographer for the event. So there's like a projector in the front that is live captioned by a person, and like she can type as fast as the speakers are talking. It's kind of incredible. But the really cool part is that at the end of that, I end up with a text file from her of her transcript of the event. And what YouTube does do well is they're able to take a text, just blob of text, and match it up to the audio,
Right.
and generate the time offsets. So it generates the time offsets based on the transcript with the words the person typed in, so they're actually the right words. And
I actually use the exact same process. There's a piece of open source software called Gentle, which given like just a plain text file blob of text and the audio that it matches, it will generate like this, it generates a few interesting things, but essentially it's like, mostly what you care about is it's machine readable data that then actually is like timestamp, utterance, it breaks it down by the word.
So it is able to tell, given that 2 pieces of data,
Yeah.
the audio stream has the words.
It will
the
it will
text file has
find the
words.
places in the audio where like you uttered that word, and it, of course it misses
So-
things that aren't in its vocabulary, but it can go back and be like, well, I don't know what this was, but I know when you said that and place, and
It can like pinpoint 2 boundaries to what.
That's how
this is. Wow.
that's how Trent works as well.
Trent. Okay, yeah.
In the sense, like you'll have all the text there, and it marks it all up as it's going by finding what the phrasing is, and it won't be spot on, but you'll change things right there. And there's even a tool that goes the other way. You can edit the text, and it will edit the audio. So you cut out the ums,
Wow.
and they're gone.
Yeah.
Just kind of, I mean, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But how? It's. I mean, you don't have to give me a specific number, but how expensive is it to have a live person? Is this something
I think
is
the
seems
rates are
reasonable?
like reasonable, like I don't know, professional service rates, 60 or 100 something an hour.
Okay.
Not
And
unreasonable, but not cheap.
and
I
was
mean,
the
it's like if they're buying pizza for 60 people, they're paying
Right.
that kind of money.
and was the addition of that was it driven by an eagerness to raise the accessibility?
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Just
And then
Also
later I realized,
awesome.
oh, I can use this for the captions in the video.
yeah.
And I was really happy to do that.
So you got 2 good things.
Yeah.
Matt, you're at 15 minutes ish.
Okay.
Marty, what was the name of that tool you described?
Gentle.
Gentle.
Oh, the other cool part about the hiring the remote the steganographer is she's actually remote, so she just
Oh.
Skypes in and does it off of Skype, which means you don't have to worry about flying somebody out to an event.
That's cool.
Oh, I had no idea. That's
Yeah.
that's.
We're also getting some
fantastic.
paste here. I think it's from Chris Aldrich. Yeah, it looks like. He mentioned Amherst College had a platform called VidBolt, which would let users annotate YouTube video and share comments either publicly or like they had like private groups. He says it's down, but the creators may have open sourced it or could be talked into it, and there are notes in the thing. Also, gosh, some of these font choices, Etherpad. Another interesting video annotation tool and review, and he links to a thing in the Chronicle, which has no name. Excellent. Okay, so check out the notes later if you want to check out what that is. Something from Fayetteville State University.
Interesting.
And there's some interesting screenshots of like what those tools look like.
Okay. What other questions and considerations do people have about, like, who around this table is not linking up text to media right now and wants to? Like, I'm definitely one. That's why I'm begging you guys for thoughts. But is anybody else planning on doing this kind of work? Either following the kind of the post facto way to bring together text assets and media recordings like these using the media fragments for IndieWebCamp documentation, or reducing a piece of media and folding it into the process like Marty does. No?
Anybody want to start a podcast?
I think cool idea is like
You should do it.
like if the audience is big enough, crowdsourcing the captioning.
You should keep doing
That's
it.
a cool idea. Like just like when they hit or like when they hit like comment or post, that'll get like the current time of the playback and they can like type what that person said or something like that, or just like input the time where the person said what they said.
I've heard that some conferences have had luck with that strategy when they have a whole bunch of people participating remotely. But I don't actually know of a specific example where it's worked out. If any of you have seen that, I'd love to see the results.
And another modern example is like live streams. So I don't think every platform does this, but you know, like Twitch and YouTube Live, they often have a chat room that goes along with some event that's being broadcast. And a lot of them afterwards, when you save that for playback, the playback will include the text transcript, like time-stamped as well. So like people's chat annotations will appear when they did relative to the video. And not every platform does that because sometimes it's garbage. Why would you want that? Like, why those YouTube idiots? Sorry, YouTube. But for like seminars and workshops, I think it can be sometimes really useful. But it's not quite. And actually, it would be a little different. But like from a technological standpoint, one of the people in that chat room could be an assigned transcriptionist. And so, like, the same technology would let like one or more people create real transcripts.
Add another item on the list.
A transcriptionist?
At least one transcriptionist, one note taker, and one.
Yeah. One producer will take notes for the edit to add drama later.
Yeah.
Facebook Live does the same thing. Like if you are watching a Facebook Live video and you like click heart or like, it will actually remember when that person liked it. So when you're watching it later, if you see a whole bunch of thumbs up appear in the middle of the video, you're like, oh, everyone really likes this. Like you can kind of skim through it, see what parts people really liked and play, you know, those little segments.
Oh, that's the kitten. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the kitten.
This has nothing to do with the IndieWeb per se, but like at work, I do some stuff with career services. And one of the tools that we would like students to get to use is a case interview practice. So they're filming themselves, recording themselves, doing interviews. But the problem with that is, like versus doing that in person, since the volume of students doesn't match the volume of staff.
Right.
So it would be great if students would use video to do this. However, we run into the situation where students do not actually want to watch the videos of themselves do interviews. So I was trying to think of like if this could be a tool to help, like maybe like
desensitize people to dealing with themselves.
Yeah, like if they're maybe looking at the text, like they're more inclined to look at that versus just watching yourself on the screen.
That's
or
probably
maybe
true.
like someone who's evaluating this video could, you know, share this one snippet. Here's this part where you say a lot, or here's this part where maybe you could change your language so it's less passive, or that sort of thing. But I know that's not really IndieWeb, but I'm just trying to think of.
I think that's
why
cool. Totally useful, yeah.
It'd be interesting to use Boris to mark up all the nonverbal behaviors as well.
Yeah. Or I'm imagining presenting them, here's the interview where you said a lot, here's the one where you didn't.
Yeah.
Do you notice a
Right.
difference? This is how you could sound.
You could sound really good. You got this job here.
Right.
You did not get the job.
I believe, have there been any participations in IndieWeb that are solely audio in delivery? Like, I guess I'm just asking about podcasting, right?
Well, there are some, like we recently uncovered, do you remember when that Tuntech talk was on microformats? It was like 2008.
Oh, yeah.
There was a talk that it turns out was recorded in audio form. It was given live, and I want to say there was video at some point, but like now all we have is this audio that's on archive.org. That was one of the first talks about the original microformats. And it's in my list to listen to. But like that's just an example, if you want a link I can send that, of like that is the artifact we have left.
Yep.
And
has anybody is it cited by time anywhere in the wiki?
Not yet. It is cited in the wiki. Yeah.
The original.
Yeah, and it's linked there, but I don't think there's I don't think anyone's
like, are
pulled
people
out
using
any
it
snippets of it
as a original source?
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
Yeah. At least not portions of it.
So you could use a media fragment as a target URL in your web mention.
That's something I want to actually see more of is like when Marty uses my music in the podcast, you could totally send a web mention to the song with the time offset in your podcast it was used in, and then my little song actually does show a bunch of the podcast episodes because you do say web mentions for the podcast,
right?
So you can see all the episodes that like this one song has been used in, but I really want that to include the time offset, so that when you click any of them, it jumps right to that part of the podcast.
Yeah.
So web mentions plus media fragment time offsets would be awesome to get more of, but I think it's still like pretty hard to create all those because it's a very manual process to like find those times.
I love that intended experience because you have the original, you have the piece of media out there in the world, and you have a way to deliver an excerpt, or you can highlight curatorially a bit of it, so that would take you right there. But then you also still have access to the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
This is reminding me that Amazon Prime's, I think it's like X-Ray that they have. If you're streaming something through the app, then as you're watching it on your phone, it gives you all the information about what's currently on the screen. So you see
the actors,
links to every actor's
things you can purchase.
Right.
No,
Which
it's
is in many ways what you want, because it's like, yeah, who is that person right now that's speaking? What is that song that's happening right now? What location are they in right now?
Yeah. I know Google Video does that on my Roku.
Okay.
I always forget about it. I'm like watching. I'm like, where else were they? IMDb. Oh
Right,
yeah.
right.
But like if you just pause, it
Right.
puts a circle around their face and
Right.
it says their name, and then.
Right.
One of the main reasons I started making Indigenous my iOS app is because I listen to podcasts in Overcast, and it has a share with timestamp feature. And so my ultimate goal is that if I click the share with timestamp, then I have it where if I click, share this post without the timestamp, like it will go back, parse the Overcast page, and embed the audio file in my site, so you can listen to the podcast file in my site. So then the next step is to include that time zone offset, and that way when it embeds it, and I could write a commentary about that part of the podcast, and you can hit play to hear that. So that's one thing that I've been
love
thinking
that
about.
experience. And that matches, like, Overcast was made by the guy who did Instapaper, right?
Yeah.
Like that seems like a kindred kind of desire to.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. And that's what he wanted to make it easier to share, like, podcasts, so he included that ability to share that. And then our issue was, how do we get that timestamp into MicroPub? And so then that's why I started working on that.
And so where can I see you working on that most efficiently?
If you go to IndieWeb.org/indigenous, then I'm going to try to keep that up to date with the information on that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's a good, I think.
5 minutes.
There's 5 minutes. I thought we were. That's. Amy, do you want to share? How difficult is it to learn how to mark up media using something like Boris?
If you are able to watch a video and control a mouse and type, you've got it.
So all I have to do is open a video, have a mouse near me, and just start typing.
Yeah, basically. So as you're watching, you define it a little bit ahead of time.
Like, are you highlighting in 2D, like?
It depends what you're looking for and what you want to be marking up. So, if it is really simple things like, who's on the screen, or maybe you have your own codes of things that you're looking for, that is definitely the simplest, because you're like watching, you pause, and you say, okay, I see these things, play. This is often where people will then use foot pedals, so then it's really easy to like start and stop the video when keeping their hands on the keyboard. It does have things where you can then define regions and get polygons and do more complex stuff, and then you could be defining when people go in and out, or if you're like measuring how close are two people. That then gets a little bit more complicated.
Can you export
Yes.
the markers?
Yes.
And so,
Yes. You can then
so the whole
export-
thing could be understood in plain text.
Yes.
After
yes. Yes. You
Oh,
export
cool.
the plain text with all of the time codes of the video. So then the next thing I think would be figuring out how you would build that into whatever other players or
How do you present it?
how do you then present that, I think would be the next challenge. And some people have, systems for that. But again, if you're like coming up with your own wacky data for video beyond just transcript, that is, I think, the tricky thing, or the opportunity to
And
create
so,
something new.
so video coding is a social sciences term. Like,
Yeah.
how mature is this field? Is it new or?
No, it's been around since video.
It's like-
Since
it's
we
like,
started
uh,
watching
Oh.
people and animals.
Yeah,
on
from the
video.
website, it's like you're watching a tiger cage and you want to know how many times the tiger played with its toy in a day. And so you have a grad student who watches
An
6 hours of
undergrad for
video.
a high school student, ideally.
Oh, there you go. you have, like, somebody has to do the grunt work of watching 8 hours of chimpanzees.
Yeah.
How many times did they look at each other in the face?
Yeah.
And you just, like, tick, fast forward, tick, fast forward, tick. So it, like, could be as simple as that, or, like, all the things she mentioned.
Fascinating.
So it's like looked like a pretty intense scientific research tool.
Yeah.
And you can, like, one of the examples was a turtle that was swimming and had video, but also was wearing a temperature and a depth sensor. And it associated those data streams. You'd watch the chart marker.
Oh, cool.
And then just a bunch of
Wait a
windows
minute. I like this associating multiple data streams. What kind of standards, like,
This seems like a great lead
Okay,
into Derek's
thank you
session
very much.
about IoT and physical hardware.
thank you very much for
have to
chatting.
Come back at 4:55.
If I had to guess, they probably invented a lot of it, like their own, because it looks like it comes out of academia.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of
I'm
companies
super excited
that
about
have
this.
their own versions of this. Most of them are subscription based. Some of them you do have to upload your video. So again, it depends how you feel about that.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's. I think the main consideration, it's not just that, maybe I don't want to use a enterprise grade tool to do this because then they have my stuff, but it's also like if you're doing scholarship and you're trying to, do work on some material, but share both the material and the work you did, it seems like having this in a system.
Yeah.
Is not, or within a service isn't good. So I guess that's why Boris is Boris the dominant player in the open source for this
In
topic?
open source, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, some people still just use Excel, right? And they just copy over the time codes.
Right.
Oops. Try to find a link for Boris, and the first one says Wiley's online library is currently unavailable.
www.boris.unito. UNITO.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that made it in the notes, if it wasn't already.
Yeah. Export to matplotlib.
I would love to see some marked up videos at some point.
You would have to.
And for the last seconds, are there any next steps for Indigenous that are going to be pertinent to this topic that are coming up?
I think the main thing is just the podcast and timestamps, because you have to have the timestamp from somewhere. So the only thing I know of that I can get timestamps from media is Overcast.
Yeah.
Obviously, that opens up room for people creating different players, YouTube player. Well, I
Right.
guess you can get the. And you can't share the timestamp with YouTube, so that's another one. YouTube and Overcast.
Yeah, you can push.
That
yeah.
sucks because it's a lot of extra work for you to catch each one of those and make sure you pull out the timestamp. But hopefully there aren't too many.
Well,
Or is there an intent of media with timestamp?
I cheat right now, and I basically just grab the URL and share it
Where's
through
that?
MicroPub, and it's up to the server.
Cool.
So unfortunately, some of that is up to the server.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have reached the session is over.
This is
Thank
it.
you all for participating.
Awesome.
This was
Thank you,
very
man.
inspiring.
Thank you.
And the next session starts in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make an announcement.
Why don't you do it?
Time.
Yeah, Boris
End of
is-
session 3.